So now I'm going to read one last bit for you. And it's going to be followed throughout the experience of Blake and Harold and their experiences. They're followed by aspects from this book called the Introduction to Haroldism, which is the sort of book of prayer, the common book of prayer, a book of common prayer for Haroldism. So you're going to get at the end of that a little description of one of the many Heroldian rituals that you and I can do together. Once you guys read this book, we can celebrate and have our own little religion. Who's with me, huh? Good, all right. We'll have a mass baptism later. All right, this is called Arousal Day. I know, just an arousal. There is something funny about a penis. Not mine, but probably yours. Mine's a very somber penis. Some days while we were walking, I hated the sky. It put the sun in my eyes and wind in my face and denied me my God-given right to air conditioning. It was nearly winter, but in Texas, heat holds rank over the seasons. It drained me, so I was all for it when one Sunday morning, nearly 3 weeks out of Figwood, Harold led us into the Woodville New Life Church, the Reverend Ben Patterson presiding. The place was clean and smelled of paint and had, oh glory, air conditioning. The ceiling was high and white with thick wooden beams like you'd find in a ski lodge. A few red and green veils and some artificial holly hung from the beams. On one of the side walls was a 9-foot-tall statue of Christ on the cross, his ribs pressing out against his skin, his eyes gazing up with the faintest trace of eyeliner. We walked in just as the service was beginning, and we sat in the long wooden pews 4 rows from the back. There were little cushions for each person's feet, so it wouldn't hurt if you chose to pray. The other parishioners, with babies and grandparents and finely shaped haircuts, peeked at us over their hymnals. We were, to be perfectly honest, a mess. I was wearing the same jeans I'd been wearing for 3 days. The other pair I had was no better. My hair was flaring up like a rat-torn bird's nest. I kept trying to push it down, but it wouldn't stay, and the others looked just as bad. The service opened with a prayer and a few announcements made by an elderly man with a wide tie. Remember, tomorrow night, the high school youth group will be hosting a pancake dinner to raise money for their upcoming ski trip. Be held in the gym, starts at 6, and we still need volunteers for the Samaritan Soup Kitchen, which is now open only on Thursdays. And he glanced at us as he said that last phrase and left the podium. The choir director, a young man in a white robe, took his place and invited the congregation to stand and join him and the choir in singing. Gilbert wouldn't sing. He sat with his arms crossed like an upset child. I couldn't tell if Shale was joining in or just mouthing the words. I sang, but quietly. After a few hymns, the congregation was told to sit down, and the choir director announced that it was better to give than to receive. 2 men started passing a gold-colored plates up and down the pews as a teenage girl took the stage and belted an off-key rendition of From a Distance. At our pew, the collector hesitated before handing us the half-filled plate. He stood there, smiling nervously and watching our hands like a mother hawk. Irma dropped in $1. Soon, Pastor Patterson began his sermon. I recognized the minister. Not the man himself, but the type. Balding on top, cut close on the sides, big white smile, wide open eyes. He reminded me of my high school girlfriend's youth leader. I'm sure that even during the most mundane of conversations, he would nod as if hearing some fascinating, heart-wrenching conversation. I imagine he wore pastel button-down shirts and looked awkward in shorts. I'm sure he was kind and gentle, tidy, possibly married with several children, but often mistaken for a homosexual. Paul tells us that we are the body of Christ. He gathered the congregation in with his eyes. So, be as Jesus was. Act as he did. Harold turned to me and grinned. What a mad world that would be. And Jesus loved people because people are the body, the minister continued. Rich or poor, he smiled, aiming his eyes in our direction. Clean or dirty, another smile. Employed or currently unemployed. He took a sip of water. So even if you're not adding anything of worth to society, you are of worth to God. And he can help you turn around. Now he was looking just at us. You can kick that narcotics habit you may or may not have. You can find a new life with a new home and a job. He smiled so big I thought his cheeks would split. In fact, I was hoping that they would split. Ah, shit, Harold, let's get out of here, Gilbert whispered. Do not disrespect this house, Irma said. I'll wait outside. Gilbert stood up and shuffled past us, grumbling under his breath. And we are all members of the body of Christ, the minister continued. Some are eyes, some are arms, some... Who's the penis? Harold said. The people in the front of us squirmed. The minister didn't seem to hear. Should the eyes say, I'd rather be a foot? Each of us has a different role in the body of Christ. I want the penis role, Harold said even louder. The minister paused, then chuckled awkwardly. Harold, Irma said, grabbing his arm. Sir, the minister slowly placed his palms together. If you can't control yourself, you're going to have to leave. You'd cut off a part of the body? You'd castrate God? All right, sir, you're disrupting the service. You need to leave. Harold jumped up on the pew. I have come to disrupt services. People stirred and backed away. Mothers pulled their children close to their sides. Shale muffled a laugh. Please, Harold, Irma pulled his pant leg. Harold looked down at her and smiled. Two men took a few steps towards him, nodding at each other. Your body is not all yours. Your life is not all yours. I give you a gift. Harold raised both his arms to the ceiling. The two men, their eyes went wide, and they stopped their approach. One dropped his hand to a pew to balance himself. Blood rushed to my crotch as the same thing happened to me. It was like it was the center of a whirlpool. I quickly folded my hands over my lap to hide the rising. Dozens of faces were blushing, men and women. The minister quickly maneuvered himself behind the podium and stared at the choir director sitting nearby. The choir director stared back and crossed his legs. From the front row, an ancient man in a wheelchair softly squealed, Jesus! I forgot that was coming. I turned to look at Irma. She was flushed, beads of sweat dropping from her lip. This was an act of God. God has a new word, Harold said, his own pants popping forward. It's the same as the old word. He pointed to the crucifix hanging on the side wall, and I could swear that as we watched, there was a slight swelling under the purple cloth painted around his waist. Praise the Father, Sons, and Holy Cock, Harold said. He turned and left the church, leaping along the tops of the pews. This is followed by... illustration. No, that's just crossing a line. Goodness. This is an introduction to Haroldism, and this describes how this has become not just history, but a ritual. Arousal Day. One of the most intimate of celebrations during the Festival of Wanderings is Arousal Day. Every December 9th, Heroldians ponder the miracle of their own bodies. The ritual can be done alone, with a partner, or with a community of believers. Participants sit naked and study their own genitals or erogenous zones without physical contact. The act almost always results in in erections and other signs of stimulation. But words move around. The act almost always results in erections and other signs of stimulation. After a time of self-appreciation, partners or communities often move on to examining each other, again without physical contact. The observance of this day can take place nearly anywhere: bedroom, bathroom, a park for those living in warmer climate, or participating Waffle Houses. In some traditions, the sexual tension is built upon until it snaps, and the final result of the ceremony is sex, but many Heroldians prefer to keep the ritual chaste. In such cases, the ritual ends with the uncorking of a bottle of white wine by a predetermined partner. At the sound of the pop, all present don a simple robe and complete the evening with a glass of white wine and occasionally some cheese. It is important to note that there's no shame in performing this ritual on your own. As Harold himself is quoted as saying, "There is that of God in each of us, therefore masturbation is the highest form of worship."